Welcome to Season 2 of Moving with CHD, the podcast and blog where I talk to fellow CHDers about being active with a congenital heart defect. For those new listeners, I'm Hayley and I was born with atrial ventricular septal defect and had 2 open heart surgeries by the age of 1. I've always loved being active, but growing up I wanted to meet others to get a better understanding of the benefits and limitations faced when exercising with a heart defect. Over these next 6 episodes, we'll share a whole range of incredible stories and the realities of moving with CHD. However active you're able to be, I hope you find some inspiration, encouragement, and the movement you love. Hey Meg, great to have you on the Moving with CHD podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. I'm so excited for our conversation. I think just before we start, for all our listeners, Meg's based in Australia and I'm in the UK. So at the moment, Meg's finished her working day and I'm about to start mine. So I'm a little bit envious. But let's get into the episode. For everyone listening, maybe just tell everyone a little bit about you, a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So I'm Meg. Born and raised in medium-sized town, Ballarat, Australia. I grew up there, did uni there, started my career working at Mars there, and then up until about 12 months ago, I started working for Mars Indonesia as well. So I moved over there in 2019. Unfortunately, had to move back to Australia with the corona outbreak. So I've been working from home at my mum and dad's house for the last 12 months. So that's a little bit about me. I've got an older sister. Mum and dad live in Ballarat. My sister lives in Newcastle, New South Wales. I'm actually visiting her at the moment. I was born with a congenital heart defect.
Yeah,
which obviously brings me to meeting you.
Yeah, we met on Instagram and we'll get into it a little bit, but obviously we sort of connected over your running, which I'm excited to talk about in a little bit. But start with, let's dig in a little bit to your congenital heart defects and what that is and sort of how that impacted you growing up.
So I was born with tetralogy of Fallot. So it means I had 4 things wrong with my heart when I was born. And I guess one of those was a hole between my left and right ventricle with some thickening of a wall. There was something to do with my aorta. I've looked at it and I still don't understand a lot of it, and I haven't done a lot of research. Some people do, some people don't. I know enough about myself. That was... when I was born, it was detected. I had a murmur that was identified by the doctor at the time. But my parents were told I would most likely grow out of it. And so wasn't anything to worry about. And it wasn't until I was about 9 months old, I wasn't thriving, wasn't developing, wasn't growing. And so I was referred to the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, Australia. Very good hospital. And they picked up that I had, the tetralogy of Fallot. So obviously lots of monitoring, lots of testing and all of that. Had to get open heart surgery done. They didn't want to do that until I hit 10 kilograms. Wow. But I didn't get there. So I think it was 20 months old when I had my first open heart surgery to correct that.
Yeah.
So, obviously through that time, I don't remember anything. I've got, pictures and stuff of me in hospital. Some of those you're like, I can't look at that as a little kid. So, what it would have been like for my mum and my dad, and my sister, she was 3 years older than me. So she still remembers a few things and, gets a little bit emotional at times if she thinks about that. But obviously here I am. I think growing up, it didn't impact me. Yeah, I had a heart condition, but I was just as good as any other kid. I loved my sport, loved running. I thought it was cool that I was part of the jump rope for heart team at primary school. So for the heart kid to be on the jump rope for heart, program. That was like, yeah, this is my program. So yeah, it didn't impact me or anything at all, really. So yeah, it's just I was me. That was it. That's how I was born. Yeah.
Scary, isn't it? Because I think quite often they detect murmurs as a baby, and then they sort of think, you'll grow out of it, and then sort of down the line, like you said, realise not sleeping all the time and not gaining weight. Yeah. And was there any, are your family super active? Is that sort of how you got into being active as a kid, or was it just something you really enjoyed?
It's something I really enjoyed. So obviously mum and dad were super supportive of doing whatever. So, we, as kids, I remember we had like one sport and one kind of art. So I played netball for a while, and I learnt the piano. So that's what our after school activities were. But yeah, we're always going on family bike rides, and there's a 6 kilometre a race around lake in Ballarat, so that's the place to ride your bike, do running, all of that. So we'd quite often do that. But yeah, we're always doing something as a family together, that dad off with the kids on a bike ride or something. So it was just natural. And yeah, I loved PE, I love sport, so it's just what I did. Yeah
Amazing. And then I guess let's fast forward a little bit to sort of more now, and how did you go from school sports and into after school activities into running?
So it probably wasn't until my mid-20s I really started running. I was playing social basketball, social netball, but I guess the team aspect of that, it was never consistent. Like you would have a team one week, not have a team the next week. And then like I was always put in centre for netball. No idea why. But especially with social netball, like, yep, Meg, you can play centre. I'm like, oh, sure, let's go. So then I'm like, well, I'm playing netball once a week. I know like cardio, I'm puffed playing netball. So what can I do to see if I can actually run out a full game of netball? So yeah, I probably started running that way, and then realised more and more that I could run, and really preferred running because I could do that under my own steam or whatever, and not have to worry about whether the team's going to show up at netball or not that night. And I was one of the coordinators of the netball team, and it's a full-time job. You'd spend your whole day at work, because it was a work team, just trying to, do I have a team? Do I not have a team? Can you play? No, you can't play. Is anyone playing? It was so just frustrating. So I was like, I actually enjoy running. There's a couple of friends that can run a bit. So they were like, yep, Meg, like we can run. And then, yeah, one of my friends convinced me to run a Spartan race.
Oh my gosh.
A Spartan obstacle course. So we didn't do any training for that. And then I realised kind of from then maybe I should do a little bit more running and training for that. So, yeah.
Spartan races, they're like, so I think they're probably the UK equivalent of like a Tough Mudder, I imagine.
Yes.
Just sort of
without the barbed wire electric stuff.
Oh, well.
So there's no electric, which is good. For a heart person, that's good.
Yeah, amazing. So Spartan races, that was quite a harsh introduction to running, really. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. So like, as I said, my friend was like, do you want to try this with me and my brother and a few friends? I'm like, yeah, sure, no worries. Like I'd been doing, couple of park runs here and there, and a few fun runs around town and stuff. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. And then she signed us up for the 14-kilometre one from the outset. So we didn't even do like the 5-kilometre sprint to begin with. We're straight into the 14, and the whole time I'm going, this is stupid. Like, seriously, what are we doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's quite some mileage on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with the running, I guess, when you started out, what sort of, I guess, benefits did you feel from the cardio aspect? You mentioned obviously trying to do the whole netball game.
Yeah, I guess for a while I did feel it. Like I felt like I could run better, faster. And obviously in the background, I was having my annual heart checkups with my cardiologist, and I kind of got to a peak and going, yeah, I don't feel like I'm progressing or improving as I thought I would, and actually I'm feeling kind of done. So that my way I progressed and peaked through that indicated that I needed further surgery to happen.
Wow.
Yep.
So what was the further surgery, and sort of how did it get to that point where you knew that?
Yeah. So when I first met my cardiologist, so my adult cardiologist, so I think I was 19 then, and I am now 35. So she was interesting. Like, there was kind of no softening the messaging or anything with her. So the first time I met her, we were talking about all this stuff. I'd had all my testing done prior to actually meeting her, echoes and ECGs and stuff. And she was telling me all the stuff, and she's like, oh, antibiotics when you go to the dentist. I'm like, yeah, I know that. All this. And she goes, oh, and what about the valve replacement? And me and my mum are in the consultation together, and we've kind of gone, huh? And she's like, no one's ever spoken to you about the valve replacement? I'm like, no one at all. And she's like, as we're finding out, like, more and more people who've had your repair done, as they're getting older, we're finding that we are having to replace their pulmonary valves. And me and mum were like, oh yeah, sure. And so she's like, there's a 50% chance that in the next 5 or so years that you might have to have that done. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, 50% chance, next 5 years, whatever. And so then annual monitoring was showing I was still good. They obviously she was very specific about not wanting to do it too early and not wanting to do it too late. So she wanted to make sure that it was done when I wasn't sick and symptomatic of needing my valve done. So yeah, obviously annual monitoring. So we sat on it for about 8 years. So every kind of the first 5 years after that, she was like, it's coming. Yes, you're going to need it. The size of my right side of my heart was changing, enlarging. And so she was like, if it gets to this, then we need to do it. And so the year I did the Spartan race, I also did a 8-kilometre run for cystic fibrosis, a 15-kilometre run for the Royal Children's Hospital, and a 12-kilometre run for Run for a Cause in Ballarat. And so I'd done these 4 big runs, and kind of that whole time, so that was 2015, and I guess I was then starting to feel some symptoms. So I'd be mopping the floor at work and I'd feel a bit puffed out. I'm like, that can't be right. Like, why am I puffed, mopping the floor? And then I would end up kind of the back end of that year after work on the weekends, I would just crash for the weekend. So I would just sit around, do nothing, like, just, why am I so tired? And like, I'm tired. And then, so the 2016, when I had my cardiologist appointment, I told her, I'm starting to feel tired. Feeling a bit puffed, sometimes dizzy, especially in the first kind of 5 or 10 minutes when I was playing netball. Like, you'd take off and you'd start kind of just going, like, actually I kind of feel a bit dizzy, like running around doing this. So, once I told her about that, she's like, yeah, I think we're there. So obviously more testing, and so the measurements of my heart, had gone into the let's do it range. So I was booked in. So that was April, I think, of 2016, and I had my valve replaced August 2016.
Wow. Yep. I mean, that's got to have been quite a shock all those years ago, going from fine, growing up, all the sports, and then suddenly valve replacement.
Yeah. At the time it absolutely was, because you're just like, oh wow, like, this is all very new news to me. And the way she broke it was like kind of like I already knew. Yeah. So I think she was also shocked that no one had spoken to me about it before. And I think just as we're talking now, and as I reflect back to kind of that time, so as I'd gone from my pediatrician to, I was referred to a Ballarat heart specialist. And he took one look at me and was like, nah, I'm sending you to Melbourne. Like, I'm going to send you to someone who knows more about your condition. I'm like, okay. So yeah, even that was like, right, like, okay, sure.
Yeah. I guess lucky that he did.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Gosh, so quite scary then. So what for you, I guess, in the build up to that surgery, obviously you've known about it for a while, but I guess in the couple of months before when you knew you were going to be having it, how could you sort of prepare for that?
Preparation, and that people have asked me that before. I'm like, I didn't feel worried or scared or anything. I'd started in a new role at work, so I think there's probably a whole lot of stress on that. And I think for a little while, it was probably more of a sense of relief because I'd been sitting on it. When's it going to happen? So there's probably more anticipation and anxiety in that 8-year build-up. And it was more of a relief going, okay, this is going to be done. Like, we're doing it. So, yeah, it was probably more of a relief. As it got a bit closer, I Googled every now and then, but tried not to Google. I think for me, the piece that I wanted to know about was the recovery type stuff, like the after. And so that was probably, how long am I going to be sore for? Like, what are how other people are recovering? So that's the piece for me that I'm like, I need to know this stuff. And I don't really want to Google it because you can't learn from people in that way because you're like, well, I don't know. I can see some pictures of them and they've written a story, but what does it actually take? So that part was hard, I think. It was, just what's it going to be like?
Yeah, you want to know when you're going to be back on your feet, don't you? And,
yeah. And like, I remember because my manager and one of my really good friends at work, they were like so supportive. And obviously at work, you sick leave and all of that. And so my manager had been communicating to the people she needed to communicate, going, we're not going to have Meg at work for 4 to 6 months. And I remember there was one of the directors of work, and he grabbed me, like he knew who I was, knew of me, but he just grabbed me and pulled me into a meeting room. He goes, I've just heard what you're about to go through. He goes, that's huge, that's epic. But he goes, from the outside, like you wouldn't even know that that's what you're about to go through. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And I think for us heart kids, like, yeah, it's a bit daunting, but at the same time, it's not a surprise to us. And that's what I kind of go, you hear all these people, heart attacks or, bypasses out of nowhere. And it's like, at least I had time to like prepare and have a think about it and be okay with it. I don't know whether, you want that surprise open heart surgery or you want the planned out, work through open heart surgery. But yeah, and I think part of my response, I think, was just like, I'm a strong Christian. So my faith in just that this is my plan, this is who I am. And if I wasn't going through this, who would I be? Like, that's it. And so my faith was really strong in through that as well.
That's amazing. I think, you're right when you say about the sort of surprise versus the planned. I mean, we do know we have underlying conditions at least, and it is, it might be part of that journey at some point.
Yeah.
So with your recovery, and you mentioned obviously that's been an area you were nervous of, how did that work with, obviously you have to have had time off running. So how did that sort of go for you, recovering and getting back to being active and getting moving again? Yeah.
So it took me probably a good 12 months to get back to feeling like I even could. I knew my heart was good. I knew I'd healed and whatever. It sounds weird, but I felt like my insides were a bit loose. So if I did try and do anything, I just feel like I wasn't held together properly. So there was probably a mental aspect in that. But I honestly at times felt like different organs were not in their right positions. So I was very wary of that, and so it's probably why it took me so long just to feel comfortable. And then the other part for me is that my rehab was in my hometown, but it was in with nanas and grandpas.
Brilliant.
So like it was, 2 sessions a week for like 12 weeks or something. But I probably needed more as I progressed at the other end to actually go, okay, this is okay for the nanas and the grandpas, but what have you got for me that I can actually get my teeth stuck into a little bit? So my recommendation for anybody is find some rehab that is better tailored to maybe someone a bit younger as well. And ask that question from your surgeon, from your cardiologist to go, like, let's get the right rehab for me. So I think that's probably played a part in why it did take so long. But I also had a lot of soreness for a long time. So stretching, sneezing, coughing. It was probably nearly 3 years until that completely dissipated.
Wow.
And there's still days now where I go, oh, I'm going to sneeze. Am I going to be okay? Like, am I standing up straight? So that's probably more of a habit that I've picked up. But yeah, like, what am I going on? 4.5 years since, I don't have any of kind of that strain or pull or anything feel anymore. So that's good. But yeah, so the 12 months later, I started really slowly. I'd just go for little shuffles and stuff. And yeah, really picked up on park run again. I'm like, this is the place, it's on every Saturday. I can go out. And so I saw, my shuffle turn into a bit more of a faster shuffle and into more of a proper run. So then that was, what was that? 2017. So 2017, 2018, 2019 was park running, a few more Spartans. And then I moved to Indonesia. So less running there, whole lot less running there. Just it was way too hot and humid. And obviously still working out where I could run, like, safely for me in, new living environment and stuff. But then obviously returning home at the start of last year, and that's, I think for a lot of people, that's where, COVID and running happened.
Yeah,
as a means to getting out of lockdown, taking the opportunity to just, get out and do something. So that's really where, my running's kicked off in the last 12 months.
Yeah, amazing. And it's interesting, actually, you're saying about your recovery. And I think for a lot of people who are looking to start getting exercising, it is important. That build up is, everyone goes through that. You can't just start and you're suddenly running and you're quick and you can go for 10 miles. It's really is that build, whether that's recovering from a surgery or that's something, you're new to a sport. It's taking that time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it does take time. And I think, and it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, for some people might not take 12 months to get restarted again. It might take shorter. And I've had a think and a bit of a reflect on that too. I'm like, while I didn't think or feel that I was sick in the lead up to my surgery, I probably was. And so part of that is that maybe, I was sicker than what I thought, and therefore my body just took that longer time to recover and feel like I could, move and get going again. But it really is different for absolutely everybody.
Yeah. And great to hear, obviously, you're back running again, and it sounds like you're absolutely loving it. One of the things I noticed on your Instagram is that you seem to be getting into the trail running.
Yeah.
So for people who may not know what this is, because I think running, a lot of people think just pounding the pavements, finding the nearest park. Tell me a little bit about what trail running is and how you sort of get into it.
Yeah. So, trail running is running on something that's not pavement, really. And there's obviously all different types of trail running, but it's really about just getting off the off the track, off the pavement, and exploring, bushland and tracks and stuff like around you, or, driving a little bit further away from where you would normally run, a little bit out in the country. Getting off onto, rocky tracks, sandy tracks. And it's just so different and enjoyable, And I don't know, I'm getting excited. My sister and I are planning a big run on the weekend. That's a trail we haven't run yet. And it uses different parts of your brain and your body from what you would use just running like on the streets and stuff. So, you might enter a piece of track and go straight up an incline, like rocky. At some points, depending on where you do your trails, you might be, hands on your knees, like hiking up it just to get there, to get to the top. But it's a whole different level of concentration because the terrain is so different, and you've got to think about your feet placement and what's around you, what are your surroundings. I'm forever freaking out because I'm pretty sure I can hear animals running past me in the bush. I have bumped into a kangaroo a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, really?
There was a kangaroo that hopped across the trail in front of me, and it's like, oh yeah, right, kangaroo, of course.
Amazing.
But what you would like with trail is that you can't just go out and smash it. You're not going to go and do a sub 30-minute 5K. It's a much lower pace. I know I feel my heart rate and my breathing go up almost instantly just because it's that different level of terrain and stuff. So it's, you're jumping over creeks, you're jumping through puddles. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how much you enjoy it and how much passion you've got around it, which is incredible. What sort of made you look more towards the trails and away from potentially just the, I guess, regular running?
Just for the excitement, I think, in my hometown, I mentioned the lake earlier. The lake is the place to be if you're a runner, but it's flat and it's boring. And if you do that, 3 or 4 times, every turn, every single tree route, every single swan that you're running past. And same with the streets get too familiar as well. So I think you're like, well, there's some bush tracks, to a town 20 kilometres out of Ballarat. Like, let's, plot something through there and let's have a run through there. And there's tracks marked as well. So, I just get on Google and search tracks near me. And there's heaps around, and it's just a matter of going, there's actually a track there, or, someone's rated this as a good run, on Instagram or running Facebook groups and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, I want to try that.
Yeah. And one thing you've mentioned as well when you started running is obviously friends getting into it, and I know you've done some running with your sister as well. How does sort of that, I guess, that community and that social aspect sort of encourage and motivate you?
I think running with a friend again changes the whole dynamic. So trail run plus a friend. You're running along, you're chatting away, you're laughing at each other because you're about to fall over, and you can see it's highly enjoyable, and it's just that time to catch up and interact with someone while you're doing something. So I find it a whole lot easier as well to talk and express how I'm feeling and how I'm going if I'm out for a run with somebody, rather than the awkward, I'm good. Well, actually, do you want to go for a run? That's my way of catching up with people. And at the moment, I've obviously got my sister into running. So she was a bit of a runner, a bit like me through high school. And then at Christmas time, I convinced her to sign up for a trail run. So 10-kilometre trail run. So we're doing that in end of April. We're doing that. So we did some running when she was home at Christmas time, and she's kept her running up while she's been home. And now I'm obviously here visiting her. But even getting on Strava and supporting her through that, she'll send me messages about the run she's planning to do. I've convinced another friend to do a half marathon with me in the end of May.
Amazing.
So yeah, again, like started doing a few training runs with her. She's now, focusing on her own running. Obviously, I'm away at the moment, so can't be running with her. And then I started running with another friend as well. So, I've got about 3 or 4 different friends that I will run with, and I've kind of like kicked off their running journeys. So yeah, and it's great to see like they're just going, oh, this is cool, Meg. Like, let's go for a run.
That's amazing.
So it's just great, yeah, motivation for myself, but motivation for others.
Yeah, I love that you've got into running and everyone around you, you're like, let's run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's interesting that you said about sort of talking to somebody as well while you're running, and on that sort of being able to express your feelings on that. I've actually heard that before, that sometimes there's a bit of a connection when you go out running with someone, is the fact you're not actually facing them and you're just sort of running along.
Yeah.
And you could just, I've heard that before. I was reading it recently about it. It's just it's a great way of sort of expressing yourself and connecting with somebody and not feeling overwhelmed or having to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, it's, for some reason it just pours out.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess sort of finally thinking about sort of what drives you with running and being active.
Yep.
What's I guess, is there anything that has, between, obviously you were running before your surgery and you'll pick that up again 12 months after, the motivations for why you're running or being active changed at all?
I think it has. I think now it's more about, like, I'm enjoying it. So, sometimes prior, like pre-surgery as my time marker, it felt like a bit of a chore. And I probably didn't understand running. But now it's like, I've got a heart that works. Like, it's fixed. It's good. I just want to see what I can do. And that's really what the motivation is. And also, I know as well mentally how I feel post-running. And there's still obviously some days where I'm like, I cannot be stuffed. But yeah, so, I was going park run 5K, and now I'm booked in for a half marathon. So I've done, now a couple of 18, 19, 20 kilometre runs. Like, I'm planning long runs all the time. I call a long run about 15K. I know other people call long runs longer. But like, even to go, oh yeah, like, for a non-heart person to go, I'm going to do a half marathon. It's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's huge. And then, like, I tell people, oh yeah, I'm going to do a half marathon. They're like, what? Seriously? I'm like, that's amazing. That's so, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, sure. But for me, I just want to see what I can do. Like, and I enjoy it too. And it's just a way, like, just to get out and just to do something. Like, especially during COVID, which is where it, like I said, it all kicked off from. Like, I'd go, like, my home and my office are the same space. So I'd be like, Mum, Dad, I'm going out. I'm targeting about 20K. If I'm not home in 3 hours, come and find me. So it's just, and I'm not racing. I'm not trying to do great times or anything. I'll stop, take all my photographs for Insta. So make sure I've got some good posts, have a look at the scenery, stop, have a drink, have something to eat. Like, I'm in absolutely no hurry. And I think that's probably one of the challenges for some people, that they're always, I've got to beat my time, I've got to get faster. I'm like, I don't care about being faster. I just want to get out and do something. Am I seeing my times get faster? Yeah, sure. That's just because I'm doing it. My body kind of kicks in now and go, oh yeah, we're going for a run. Cool, let's go. And it just takes off. So yeah, it's just, I don't know.
I think that's sort of quite a good place to sort of wrap up, actually. That I love the idea that it's you're doing it because you enjoy it and you want to see what you want to do. Is there anything you would share for other CHDs who might be interested in getting started in running?
The only other thing I would say is have a go, but we know our own limits. So people will ask me, oh, do you feel your heart? I'm like, well, no, I don't. And it doesn't dictate what I do. So yes, I know my limits. I know if I am pushing myself too hard, but I don't kind of go, I've got a heart condition, so I'm not going to do anything, or I'm not going to try. Like, especially around like the Spartan races and stuff that I was doing, I knew there was some weight type things I couldn't do. There was no way I was lifting an Atlas ball and carrying that. Like, that's stupid, and that would be a really bad decision. Yeah. But like, there was other things in that I could do, and so I just had to go. Like, I think it's just knowing your body and yourself, and just seeing and having a go, and you'll certainly know if it's not right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Moving with CHD, Meg. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problems. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've not already, please help us get the word out to fellow CHDers by sharing with your network, subscribing to the YouTube channel or podcast series, and leaving your feedback in the comments. You can also stay up to date on all the latest episodes on my Instagram @Hayley.heartfitness.